My parents want me to die so my brother can go to college. I found the life insurance policy paperwork in my mom's desk drawer while looking for stamps 3 weeks ago. The policy was for $500,000, and it had my name on it as the insured party. I'm 17. My parents took out a $500,000 life insurance policy on me 2 years ago, right after my brother Lucas got accepted to MIT with no financial aid. The monthly premium was $340, which seemed like a lot of money for our family to be spending, especially since Dad was always complaining about bills. I took pictures of everything with my phone and put the papers back exactly how I found them. At first, I tried to convince myself it was normal, that lots of parents have life insurance on their kids for protection, but the amount kept bothering me. $500,000 was way more than what most families get for a teenage daughter. That night at dinner, Lucas was talking about his classes and how expensive his textbooks were. Mom mentioned that his second semester tuition was due in January, and they were still short $31,000 even after his loans. Dad got quiet and stared at his plate. I noticed him glance at me twice during that conversation with an expression I couldn't read. The weird comments started after that, or maybe I just started noticing them. Mom would say things like, "I hope you're being careful when I'd leave for school." Dad would mention how dangerous teenage drivers were, even though I'd never had an accident. Lucas asked me once if I'd updated my social media passwords and gave them to anyone, which seemed like a strange question. Then my car started having problems. The brakes felt soft when I'd press them, like there wasn't enough fluid. I mentioned it to Dad, and he said he'd check it out. But 2 days later, he said everything looked fine. The brakes failed completely the following week when I was driving home from my shift at the coffee shop. I managed to stop using the emergency brake, but my hands were shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. I called Dad from the side of the road, and he sounded annoyed when he answered. He said I probably just needed new brake pads and I was overreacting. When the mechanic looked at my car the next day, he said the brake line had a slow leak that had drained all the fluid. He seemed confused about how it happened, said the line looked like it might have been nicked or punctured, but he couldn't be sure. The repair cost $380, which Dad complained about for 3 days straight. I started paying more attention after that to little things that seemed off. My allergy medicine bottle had a different number of pills than I remembered, even though I took them every day at the same time. The expiration date on my EpiPen had been scratched off. When I asked Mom about it, she said she must have accidentally damaged it while organizing the medicine cabinet. Mom made my lunch for school every day, which was nice, except I started feeling sick after eating it. Nauseous and dizzy, like my blood sugar was dropping. I mentioned maybe I had a stomach bug, and Mom said I should probably stay home from school. She suggested I rest in my room with the door closed so I wouldn't get Lucas sick since he had important exams coming up. I pretended to eat my lunch the next day but threw it away instead. I felt fine all afternoon. The day after that, I ate the lunch and felt sick again within an hour. That's when I started checking the food more carefully. I found a small bottle in the back of the spice cabinet labeled insulin. We don't have diabetes in our family. I googled what insulin does to people who don't need it, and the search results made my blood run cold. It causes severe low blood sugar that can lead to seizures, coma, or death if given in large enough doses. I took pictures of the insulin bottle and put it back. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I went to my room and started going through everything I'd noticed over the past month. The life insurance policy, the brake line leak, the EpiPen with no expiration date, the lunch that made me sick, the insulin hidden in the kitchen. My parents needed $31,000 for Lucas's tuition in January. It was November now. That gave them 2 months to make $500,000 appear, and apparently I was their retirement plan. I couldn't call the police, because what would I tell them? That my parents had life insurance on me? That my car had a brake problem? That I got sick from school lunch? None of it was proof, just a pattern that looked horrifying when you put it all together. I started recording every conversation I had with my parents. I documented every time Mom made my lunch, every time Dad offered to work on my car. I kept a journal of every strange comment or suspicious incident. But then Lucas came into my room last night and closed the door behind him. He looked nervous, kept glancing back at the hallway. He said we needed to talk about something important. And that's when things took a turn I never expected. "I found the insurance policy too," Lucas whispers, his voice barely audible even in the quiet of my bedroom, and that's not all. My heart pounds so hard I can feel it in my throat. Lucas, my brilliant MIT-bound brother, sits on the edge of my bed, his shoulders hunched forward like he's carrying something heavy. "How long have you known?" I ask. "About 3 months. I was looking for my passport in Dad's filing cabinet and found it by accident." He runs his hands through his hair, a nervous habit he's had since we were kids. "I've been investigating them ever since." The word investigating hits me like a slap. While I've been collecting evidence for weeks, Lucas has apparently been doing the same for months. "Show me," I say. Lucas pulls out his phone and opens a password-protected folder. Inside are dozens of photos, financial documents, loan paperwork, emails, and text messages. He's been thorough in ways I never thought to be. "They changed my loan terms without telling me," he says, scrolling through images of documents I don't fully understand. "The original terms were manageable. I'd have 20 years to pay it back, but they refinanced everything with some predatory lender. The new terms require full payment if I drop out or fail to maintain a 3.8 gigapascals. Why would they do that? Because they never intended for me to pay it back." His voice cracks. "They plan to use your insurance money to cover everything. The new loan terms were just to justify why they needed the money so badly." I feel sick, but not from insulin this time. "Lucas, I found insulin in the spice cabinet. Mom's been putting it in my food. That's why I've been feeling so sick after lunch." His face goes pale. "I know. I've been testing your food when I can. She's been doing it for weeks, gradually increasing the dose." "And my car." "Dad did it." He cuts me off. "I saw him in the garage with your brake line 3 nights before it failed." I didn't understand what he was doing at the time, but after finding the insurance policy, he trails off, unable to finish the sentence. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" I can't keep the hurt from my voice. I needed to be sure. I needed proof no one could dismiss. Lucas looks me directly in the eyes, and I was afraid if they knew we were onto them, they'd get desperate and try something more immediate. The reality of our situation crashes down on me. My own parents are methodically trying to kill me to fund my brother's education, and my brother has been secretly gathering evidence to protect me. What do we do now? I ask. We need to get you somewhere safe first, Lucas says. Then we need to make sure all our evidence is backed up securely. I have a plan, but we need to be careful. They're watching you closely. I nod, trying to process everything. Lucas, how did we end up here? How did our parents become this? He shakes his head slowly. I don't know, but I promise you we're going to get through this together. For the first time in weeks, I feel something other than fear. With Lucas on my side, maybe we have a chance. But I know our parents won't give up easily, not with $31,000 due in January and their perfect son's future hanging in the balance. Tomorrow, we start fighting back. I barely slept after Lucas's revelation. Every creak in the house made me jolt awake, wondering if my parents were coming to check if I was still breathing. By morning, my eyes were burning from exhaustion, but my mind was racing with plans. We need evidence nobody can dismiss, Lucas whispers over breakfast, carefully timing his words for when Mom steps outside to get the mail. Hidden cameras. I already ordered some. Dad glances up from his newspaper. What are you two whispering about? Just helping her with a science project, Lucas answers smoothly. She's documenting household routines for her sociology class. Dad nods, seemingly satisfied, and goes back to reading. I notice his eyes flicking toward me when he thinks I'm not looking. There's something calculating in that gaze now that I can't believe I missed before. The cameras arrive the next day in a package addressed to Lucas. They're tiny wireless models that connect to our phones, disguised as USB wall chargers. That night, after our parents go to bed, we install them in strategic locations: the kitchen, the garage, my bedroom, and the dining room. They'll never notice these, Lucas says, positioning one in my room that has a perfect view of my bed. The thought makes me shiver. If they try anything while you're sleeping, we'll have it on video. What if they find them? I ask, my voice barely audible. Then we'll know they're searching your room, which is suspicious enough. He squeezes my shoulder. Trust me, I've thought this through. It takes less than 48 hours to capture the first piece of evidence. I'm at school when my phone buzzes with an alert from the garage camera. I duck into the bathroom and open the app with shaking hands. The footage shows Dad kneeling beside my car, the one with the newly repaired brakes. He has a small tool in his hand and he's methodically poking tiny holes in my tires. Not enough to cause an immediate blowout, but enough that they'd gradually deflate while I was driving. The careful precision in his movements makes my stomach turn. This isn't impulsive, it's calculated. I forward the clip to Lucas immediately. He texts back, asterisk, don't react, act normal, we need more evidence, asterisk. That evening at dinner, Mom serves pasta with marinara sauce. The cameras capture her in the kitchen, adding something from a small vial into just my portion before bringing the plates to the table. Lucas and I exchange a glance as she sets the food down. I'm not feeling well, I say, pushing the plate away slightly. My stomach's been off all day. You should eat something, Mom insists, her voice laced with concern that once would have seemed genuine. Just a few bites. You need your strength. I'll make you some toast later, Lucas interjects. Sometimes bland food is better when you're nauseated. Mom's smile tightens almost imperceptibly. If you're sure, honey, I can save your portion for tomorrow's lunch. No, I say too quickly, then force a casual tone. I mean, it'll probably be spoiled by then. Just throw it out. After dinner, when our parents think we're both in our rooms studying, Lucas and I meet in the bathroom, with the shower running to mask our conversation. What was she putting in your food? He asks, his face pale. I don't know. More insulin, maybe? Or something worse. I lean against the sink for support. Lucas. They're getting more aggressive. The tire thing could have killed me if I was on the highway. I know. He runs his hands through his hair. I think they're accelerating their timeline. January tuition is getting closer. That night, the dining room camera captures our parents in hushed conversation after they think we've gone to bed. They're sitting close together at the table, heads bent over papers I can't quite see. We need to be careful, Mom whispers. The brake line was too obvious. It has to look accidental. Dad nods. The tires will work. It'll just look like a blowout. Happens to teenagers all the time, especially ones who don't maintain their cars properly. And if that doesn't work, Mom asks. We have options. The insulin is untraceable if we're careful with the dosage. Dad taps something on the paper. The timeline is tight, but we can make it work. The policy pays out quickly for accidents. I watch this footage with my hand pressed over my mouth to keep from screaming. These are my parents, the people who taught me to ride a bike, who bandaged my skinned knees, who once checked under my bed for monsters. Now they're the monsters. The next day, I fake a migraine to stay home from school. As soon as they leave, Mom to her part-time job at the library, Dad to his office, I search the house thoroughly. In their bedroom closet, behind a stack of winter sweaters, I find a folder labeled Family Documents. Inside are life insurance policies for all of us, but mine is flagged with yellow sticky notes. There are printouts about insulin overdose symptoms that mimic natural causes. A brochure from a funeral home with service options circled, and most chilling of all, detailed funeral arrangements for me, down to the songs to be played and the photo they'd use in the program. They've already planned my funeral. They've already picked out the clothes I'll be buried in. I photograph everything with trembling hands and put it all back exactly as I found it. When I return to my room, I curl up on my bed and sob silently into my pillow. The camera Lucas installed watches over me, its tiny red light blinking like a guardian. That afternoon, Lucas skips his last class to come home early. I show him what I found, and he holds me while I cry. We have enough, he says finally, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. We have the videos, the documents, the insulin, everything. We need to get you somewhere safe now. Where can I go? They're my legal guardians. I'm still 17. The reality of our situation crashes down on me again. If I run, they could report me missing. They could bring me back. Lucas is quiet for a long moment, thinking. I have a plan, he says finally, but you're not going to like it. What is it? We need to let them try one more time, he says, his voice barely audible. But this time, we'll be ready. We'll have witnesses. I stare at him, understanding slowly dawning. You want to catch them in the act. He nods grimly. It's the only way to make sure they never get near you again. That night, I lie awake watching the shadows move across my ceiling, knowing my parents are just down the hall plotting my death. The camera blinks steadily in the corner, recording everything. I wonder if it will capture the moment they decide to stop waiting and just end it. Tomorrow, we start setting the trap. But tonight, I'm terrified of closing my eyes, afraid I might never open them again. We need to get everything in one place, Lucas says, his voice steady despite the dark circles under his eyes. We're sitting in his car in the school parking lot, both of us skipping our afternoon classes. After finding my funeral arrangements yesterday, neither of us wants to waste time. Where? I ask. They could find anything we hide at home. My friend Jared's apartment. He's at MIT already, but his parents still pay the rent. They think he comes home on weekends. Lucas pulls out a key. He gave me this for emergencies. This qualifies. We drive to a small apartment complex near the community college. Inside, the place is sparse but clean, a perfect hiding spot. For the next 3 hours, we organize everything we've collected. Video files from the hidden cameras, photos of the insulin bottle, screenshots of the funeral arrangements, copies of the life insurance policy, and pictures of the punctured tires. It's overwhelming when you see it all together, I whisper, staring at the evidence of our parents' betrayal spread across Jared's coffee table. That's the point, Lucas says, methodically labeling each piece of evidence. No one can dismiss this as coincidence or misunderstanding. We decide to contact the police, but not just any officer. Lucas has already done his research. Detective Morales specializes in domestic cases, he explains, showing me the department website on his phone. She has a good reputation for handling sensitive family situations. I nod, my throat tight. What if they don't believe us? What if our parents convince them we're just troubled kids making things up? Lucas holds up a flash drive. That's why we have copies of everything in 3 different locations, and why we're going to record every conversation from now on. The meeting with Detective Morales is set for 4:30 p.m. at the police station. We arrive early, both of us jumpy with nerves. She's a serious woman in her 40s with kind eyes that have seen too much. I understand you have concerns about your parents, she says carefully after we introduce ourselves. Her office is small but private, the walls lined with filing cabinets. They're trying to kill me, I blurt out, the words hanging in the air like smoke. To her credit, Detective Morales doesn't dismiss me. She listens intently as we lay out our evidence, piece by piece. The life insurance policy, the videos of Mom adding substances to my food, Dad puncturing my tires, their late-night conversation about making my death look accidental, the funeral arrangements already prepared. And you believe this is motivated by financial need? She asks, taking careful notes. Lucas nods. They need $31,000 for my tuition by January. The life insurance policy on my sister is for $500,000. The math isn't complicated. Detective Morales reviews the evidence again, her expression growing more troubled. This is substantial, she finally says. I've seen cases of parental abuse, but rarely with this level of premeditation. What happens now? I ask, my voice small. I need to bring in my lieutenant and the district attorney. Then we'll need to confront your parents with this evidence. She looks at me directly. Do you have somewhere safe to stay tonight? She can stay with me at Jared's apartment, Lucas says. Our parents think we're at a school event until 9. Detective Morales nods. Good. I want to move quickly on this. Can you both come back tomorrow morning at 10 a.m.? We'll have your parents come in separately. The next morning feels surreal. We're placed in a conference room with Detective Morales, her lieutenant, and a woman from the district attorney's office. Our parents are brought in separately, Mom first, looking confused and worried. Rebecca, she says when she sees me, reaching out before Detective Morales steps between us. What's going on? They said there was an emergency. Mrs. Carter, Detective Morales says formally, we've asked you here to discuss some very serious allegations regarding your daughter. Mom's face shifts from concern to something carefully neutral. What allegations? Detective Morales begins playing the videos. Mom adding substances to my food. The late-night conversation about making my death look accidental. With each new piece of evidence, Mom's face grows paler. These are taken out of context, she says, but her voice lacks conviction. We would never hurt Rebecca. We have the insulin bottle from your kitchen, Detective Morales continues, and the funeral arrangements you've already made for your 17-year-old daughter. This is ridiculous, Mom says, but her hands are trembling. Robert and I are trying to protect our children. Lucas needs his education. By killing your daughter for insurance money? The lieutenant asks bluntly. Something breaks in Mom then. Her shoulders collapse and tears stream down her face. You don't understand, she whispers. We were desperate. The loans fell through. Lucas is brilliant. He deserves MIT. He's going to change the world someday. I feel sick hearing her justify my murder as if it were a reasonable sacrifice. Lucas grabs my hand under the table, squeezing so hard it hurts. So you admit to attempting to poison your daughter, Detective Morales presses. It was just to make her sick at first, Mom says, her voice hollow. Just enough to justify the hospital visits, establish a medical history. The insurance pays double for illness-related deaths. The room goes silent. I can't breathe. Mom just confessed to systematically poisoning me to set up my accidental death. Dad's interrogation is different. He's defensive from the start, denying everything even when faced with video evidence of him puncturing my tires. I was checking them for leaks, he insists, though the footage clearly shows otherwise. When confronted with their recorded conversation about timelines and making my death look accidental, he finally breaks. It was never going to happen, he says, his voice cracking. We were just talking. People say things they don't mean when they're stressed about money. You prepared funeral arrangements, Detective Morales says coldly. You purchased a $500,000 insurance policy. You tampered with her car's brake lines and tires. These aren't just words, Mr. Carter. I never intended to actually kill her. Dad insists, looking at me for the first time. Rebecca, you have to believe me. It was just contingency planning. For worst-case scenarios. Worst-case scenarios where I die and you get rich? I ask, my voice surprisingly steady. Where Lucas gets his future. He corrects, as if that makes it better. We've sacrificed everything for you kids. Everything. When the financial aid fell through, we were desperate. So you decided I was expendable, I say. Dad flinches but doesn't deny it. The room falls silent except for the sound of Detective Morales' pen scratching against her notepad. Robert and Sandra Carter, she finally says, you're both under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and child endangerment. As they read my parents their rights, I watch their faces. Mom is crying silently, but there's something resigned in her expression, like she's almost relieved it's over. Dad looks shell-shocked, as if he can't believe his contingency planning has actual consequences. Lucas puts his arm around me as they lead our parents away in handcuffs. It's over, he whispers. You're safe now. But it doesn't feel over. It feels like everything I knew about my life was a lie. The people who were supposed to protect me saw me as nothing more than a financial solution, a means to an end. What happens now? I ask Detective Morales as the door closes behind my parents. Now we build a case, she says gently. And you focus on healing. Do you have family you can stay with? I think of our aunt in Portland, my mom's sister, who always sent birthday cards with $20 bills tucked inside. Maybe, I say. But what about Lucas? What about MIT? Lucas shakes his head. Don't worry about that now. We'll figure it out. As we leave the police station, reporters are already gathering outside. Someone leaked the story, parents plotting to kill their daughter for insurance money to send their son to MIT. It's the kind of headline that sells papers and drives clicks. Don't talk to them, Detective Morales advises, escorting us to a side exit. This case will get enough attention without your direct involvement. In the car, Lucas is quiet, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. I'm sorry, he finally says. This is all because of me, because of MIT. No, I tell him firmly. This is because our parents made monstrous choices. You didn't ask for any of this. He nods, but I can see the guilt weighing on him, the $31,000 tuition bill that somehow became worth more than my life. As we drive away from the police station, I realize we're homeless now, orphaned not by death but by betrayal. Everything familiar has been poisoned, literally and figuratively. There's no going back to normal after this. We'll get through this, Lucas says, as if reading my thoughts. Together. I nod, watching the city blur past the window. My parents wanted me dead so my brother could go to college. Instead, they're going to prison, and we're left to rebuild from the wreckage of their choices. The future is terrifying and uncertain, but at least I'll be alive to see it. I never thought I'd be sitting across from my parents in a courtroom, watching them in orange jumpsuits as the judge read out their sentences. But here I am, gripping Lucas's hand so tightly my knuckles have turned white, trying to process how we got here. The defendants, Sandra and Robert Carter, having been found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, and child endangerment, are hereby sentenced to 18 years and 22 years respectively in state prison. The gavel comes down with a finality that echoes through the courtroom. Mom stares at the floor, her shoulders slumped in defeat. Dad looks directly at me, his expression unreadable. Neither of them speaks as the bailiffs lead them away. It's over, Lucas whispers, squeezing my hand. But it doesn't feel over. It feels like the beginning of something else entirely. The weeks following my parents' arrest were a blur of police interviews, court appearances, and media frenzy. Our case became national news overnight. Parents plot to kill daughter for son's college tuition, complete with our yearbook photos plastered across every news outlet. Detective Morales became our lifeline through the chaos, shielding us from reporters and coordinating with social services to figure out where I would live until I turned 18. Your aunt in Portland has agreed to take you in, she tells me 3 days after the arrest. She'll be here tomorrow to pick you up. Aunt Claire is my mother's younger sister, someone we saw only at Christmas and occasional summer visits. She arrives the next day, looking shell-shocked, her eyes red from crying. I still can't believe Sandra would do this, she says, hugging me tightly in Detective Morales' office. Over money, over college tuition. She pulls back to look at me. I'm so sorry, Rebecca. I had no idea. None of us did, I say, though that's not entirely true. Lucas and I had pieced it together, but even we couldn't believe it until we had irrefutable evidence. What about Lucas? I ask. He's 18, but he needs somewhere to stay too. Aunt Claire nods. Of course he's coming with us. I've already made up both guest rooms. The hardest part is going back to our house to pack our belongings. Detective Morales escorts us, along with 2 officers who stand guard while we move through rooms that now feel contaminated by betrayal. I take clothes, books, my laptop, and a few photos, ones that don't include my parents. In my parents' bedroom, I pause at Mom's jewelry box. Inside is the silver locket she gave me for my 16th birthday, before all this started. I leave it where it is. Ready? Lucas asks from the doorway, his backpack and duffel bag already packed. Yeah, I say, turning away from the remnants of what I thought was a normal family life. Let's go. Portland is rainy and gray when we arrive, matching my mood perfectly. Aunt Claire's house is small but comfortable, with a garden full of overgrown roses and a kitchen that smells like cinnamon. She gives us space to adjust, doesn't push for conversations about what happened, just makes sure we have food and clean towels and Wi-Fi passwords. 3 days after we arrive, Lucas gets an email from MIT. They've heard about our situation, he says, his voice hollow as he reads from his laptop screen. They want to set up a video call. Are they rescinding your acceptance? I ask, my stomach dropping. After everything, the thought that Lucas might lose his future because of our parents' actions is unbearable. I don't know, he says. Probably. The video call happens the next morning. Lucas sits at Aunt Claire's dining table, wearing the only button-down shirt he packed, looking like he's facing a firing squad. I sit just off camera, ready to support him whatever happens. Mr. Carter, says a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a stern mouth, I'm Dr. Elaine Hoffman, Dean of Student Affairs. I want to start by saying how deeply sorry we are about what you and your sister have endured. Lucas nods stiffly. Thank you. We've reviewed your situation, and I want to be clear, your acceptance to MIT stands. Your academic achievements earned you that place, regardless of your parents' actions. Lucas exhales sharply. I feel tears pricking at my eyes. Furthermore, Dr. Hoffman continues, the Institute has decided to offer you a full scholarship covering tuition, room, board, and expenses for all 4 years of your undergraduate studies. What? Lucas whispers, his voice cracking. Your story has touched many of our alumni, she explains. Several have contributed to establish this scholarship for you. We believe in supporting students who demonstrate extraordinary resilience in the face of adversity. When the call ends, Lucas sits in stunned silence for several minutes. Then he puts his head in his hands and cries, the first time I've seen him break down since this nightmare began. You deserve this, I tell him, wrapping my arms around his shoulders. This is what they should have done, supported you properly instead of. I can't finish the sentence. I never wanted this, he says through his tears. I would have taken loans, worked jobs, anything. I never wanted you to get hurt. I know, I say. I know. The trial happens 6 months later. By then, I've started at a new high school in Portland, trying to blend in despite everyone knowing my story. Lucas has begun his first semester at MIT, video calling me almost every night to check in. The prosecution's case is overwhelming. The videos, the insulin bottle, the funeral arrangements, the life insurance policy, it all paints a picture of calculated, cold-blooded planning. Mom's confession during the initial interview seals their fate. I have to testify, describing how I found the insurance policy, how I felt when I realized my parents were systematically poisoning me, how I discovered my own funeral arrangements. The courtroom is silent except for a few gasps when I describe finding the insulin hidden in the spice cabinet. And how much was this life insurance policy worth? The prosecutor asks. $500,000, I say, my voice steady despite the nausea rising in my throat. They took it out 2 years ago, right after Lucas got accepted to MIT. And the monthly premium? $340. Did you ever confront your parents about what you found? I shake my head. I was afraid of what they might do if they knew I'd discovered their plan. When it's over, when the sentences are read and my parents are led away, I feel nothing but exhaustion. 18 years for Mom. 22 for Dad. By the time they're released, I'll be in my late 30s. Life moves forward in strange, unexpected ways. Lucas thrives at MIT, throwing himself into his studies with an intensity that worries me sometimes. I graduate high school and get accepted to Portland State, choosing to stay close to Aunt Claire, who has become the parent I never truly had. The story fades from the headlines. New tragedies take its place. People stop recognizing me at the grocery store or whispering when I walk into classrooms. 5 years after the trial, I decide it's time. I drive to the state correctional facility where Dad is serving his sentence, go through security checks and pat-downs, and sit at a small table in the visitors area. When they bring him in, I barely recognize him. His hair has gone completely gray, and prison has hollowed his cheeks, hardened the lines around his eyes. He stops short when he sees me, like he can't believe I'm really there. Rebecca, he says, his voice rough from disuse. Dad, I reply, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. He sits across from me, hands folded on the table. We stare at each other for a long moment. Why? I finally ask, the question I've carried for 5 years. I need to know why. He looks down at his hands, then back at me. Something shifts in his expression, the careful mask he wore throughout the trial crumbling away. We were drowning, he says quietly. The loans fell through. Lucas's future was slipping away. We'd already mortgaged the house twice. Your mother suggested the insurance policy as a last resort, just in case something happened naturally. Naturally, I repeat. Like me dying in a car crash you engineered, or from insulin your wife was putting in my food? He flinches. It started small, just thoughts, contingency plans. Then it became real, step by step. Each time we crossed a line, the next one seemed easier to cross. You prepared my funeral, I say, my voice breaking despite my best efforts. You picked out the clothes you wanted to bury me in. Dad's eyes fill with tears. I know there's nothing I can say that will ever make this right. Nothing that can explain away what we did. He takes a shaky breath. But I want you to know that I'm sorry. Not just for getting caught, but for betraying you in the most fundamental way possible. I sit with his words, turning them over in my mind. The apology I've waited 5 years to hear feels both enormous and completely inadequate. Lucas graduated last month, I say finally, summa cum laude. He's starting his PhD in the fall. A small, sad smile crosses Dad's face. I'm not surprised. He was always brilliant. He did it without you, I say. Without your sacrifice, without your plan. Dad nods slowly. And you? Are you? Okay? The question is so normal, so parental, that I almost laugh. I'm alive, I say, which wasn't part of your plan. As I drive away from the prison, I feel something shift inside me. Not forgiveness, exactly, but perhaps the first step toward whatever comes after survival. My parents wanted me dead so my brother could go to college. Instead, they're in prison. And we've built lives they never imagined for us. It's not the ending anyone would have chosen, but it's ours, and we're making it count.